Hello, thanks for joining this YouTube video. I'm going to talk about various topics, and in particular this time I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I've been a player of Dungeons and Dragons for many years. I'm in my mid-40s and I started out early at school and started playing. Actually, I studied on Rolemaster and Middle-earth role-playing, but I did get round to Dungeons and Dragons eventually in my teenage years and stuck with it on and off actually, and played it a lot in my 20s and then again in my 30s. And then went through a sort of pause, probably mid to late 30s actually, where I didn't really play any role-playing. I got a lot of content out on my wargaming side of my hobby, so my Grunts rules, and then Imperial Skies more recently as rule sets that I've published. But it sort of still comes back to me, my Dungeons and Dragons roots. I do enjoy a good game of it. I like rolling a d20. It's great having friends round, playing a game with old friends, especially those that I've role-played with in the past. We quite often reboot ourselves, so with this latest version of the Player's Handbook, which came out in August 2014 I believe, so I'm a bit late, aren't I? Getting back into this after another couple of years have passed, but so we wanted to take a look, and we've heard those good things about the rules and wanted to find out how it played. So we've been playing a game recently, a small campaign that's only just started last week. I'm running it as the Games Master, or Dungeon Master if you prefer, and it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. I like some of the new mechanisms, the way the D20 advantage roll works, where you get an extra D20 to roll if you're on advantage, and you roll both dice and pick the best of the two. And if you're at a disadvantage, which could be because someone's doing something against you, some trickery during the fighting, what have you, you roll the 2d20 and you pick the lowest. And that happens across the board for various different rule tests. It just feels a lot more simplified, less cluttered than the last edition that came out. Well, I just want to show you some of the bits and pieces I use to support a game, and what I'll do is I'll zoom down onto the stump in a moment and show you some of these things up close. But I use these NPC cards quite often, and they're from the Pathfinder guys, I think. They're actually not official Wizards cards, but you can buy them in packs. And then what I tend to do, store them up in a plastic box like this one, and from Ultimate Guard I think this case is from, and then put them into these sleeves, so you can see the sort of standard Magic the Gathering style gamer protector sleeves. And I'll pick out a few which I like in terms of how I'm working with my story, and then I drop the names on there. In fact, I use a special kind of paint marker pen, one of those ones that has that sort of shaking in there, because it's a black one, pen touch. Yeah, quick dry, permanent pen touch. Shake it up, and when you hand write on these, even when you're playing in a game, like I've done on the back there, they look shiny still, as if it's going to rub off in your hand, but it just won't come off. So it's fantastic for just marking up these sleeves without putting any damage to the card, obviously. And of course you can whiz through. So my particular campaign I was running, one of the key characters in there is this blue witch called Agatha, who's a troll witch. Agatha the Blue Witch, I've just written on the back. I haven't put any stats or anything on there because I grab the stats from the books, but these are just prompts for me, and I can just flip them out and show the characters. And also during the game, it's then easy for me to get that visual reference. So I had another character in the game called Olag of the Cage. He was kept in a cage by the Blue Witch Agatha, and the characters had an interesting set of activity to do where they needed to track down Agatha with a much more powerful character, because they were only first level, so they couldn't take on a troll. So there was a fight at the end of the game where there was a bit of a showdown between the characters and Agatha the Blue Troll, and she was taken out by a more powerful character that was with them. It was a kind of a game mechanic, but her head was needed. And if anybody's read the comic book graphic novel called The Headlopper, I was sort of loosely basing it on the story in there, and there's a character, and I've got his card in here which represents him, Norgal, the Headlopper. So I was shamelessly using all material from the Headlopper graphic novel and which include Agatha the Blue Troll, and Norgal was after her head. So in terms of where it fits in that storyline, it was just before the main graphic novel came out, the sort of compiled edition, and it was Norgal's hunt for Agatha's head. So he managed to lop off her head, and the characters succeeded in their mission. And what they did is basically support Norgal by taking out some low-level goblins, because they were only first level. But I wanted them to get a sort of feel for the sort of drama and action of having more powerful fighters around them. So it was good fun. Party size was 4 players. We had a monk, we had a warlock, a cleric, and a halfling playing a barbarian. So it's always an interesting mix when someone picks a funny character like that, but it went down quite well. So those are the cards, and that's how I play it. I mean, I'll show you some of these close up. I don't want to show all the artwork off because I'm sure I might get into trouble for showing them off. I don't know, but yeah, as you can see, high quality cards from the guys that make Pathfinder. Oh, that's gone flying off. So Igor Barkeep. That's what I got here. Agatha the Blue Witch Troll, and that head of hers actually was lopped off. She is still alive, interestingly, in a sack, the head in a sack, and she's needed for the next phase of the adventure, where they're going to a place called the Black Bog to try and take out a sorcerer that resides there, a cursed sorcerer, and they need her powerful magic in the form of her head, which is still potent magic, to help deal with that. So yeah, I've got a few other characters from the game which I played. So Bolag, the clever child. So that's one of Agatha's goblin children. That of course, you'd think, obviously, that how can she have goblin children? She should have more trolls. But the way I played it was that she had a caged partner called Olag, and the offspring were a kind of half-breed goblin nasty thing, but one of them born a bit cleverer than the others, and the characters haven't actually encountered her yet, so that's kind of a spoiler if they tune into my YouTube channel. So that's those, and they're a great little help really in the game. Other things I do when I'm doing my role-playing, just to support the gameplay and speed things along, is I would use any kind of miniatures that I've got from my collection. So here we go, handy tray. I've got a combination in here. I've got some War Machine models. These are druids from the range called the Circle Orboros, and then these goblins that are all in here are from the Lord of the Rings Goblin Town, and they were Agatha the Blue Witch Troll's children, sort of deformed, stunted, horrible things that were living in a cave with her, that the characters had to fend off. And then as far as rules wise, I know they're not traditional Dungeons and Dragons goblins, but they looked close enough to me, and rules wise I played them as traditional Dungeons and Dragons goblins, even though they're kind of the half-bred offspring of Agatha the Troll. So I'll go down to the stump actually, so you can just see these in a little bit more detail. So there you go. You've got a whole mix in here of what I use, and I don't care, to be honest, about keeping things strictly one range of miniatures. So the characters actually use these character flats, and these are from Arknight. They did a Kickstarter. In fact, I've got some more I've ordered recently of these, because I ran out of the little Perspex bases that they come on. They just clip out of the Perspex. Well, it's not Perspex, plastic, printed plastic. They've got a nice double-sided image, and great for character models because they have a lot of them, but of course they also do these sort of nasty larger monsters as well. There's a whole range of Arknight models, so worth having a look at. And very light, easy to play with, easy to get into the game if you are wanting to get some nice looking models without, there you go, you can see the back side of that as well, without spending a lot of money or time on painting all these little guys up. So these are the Goblin Town plastic ones from Games Workshop, and to be fair, I bought those pre-painted but rather cheaply. Probably came out at less than £1 a model painted on eBay. and perfect goblins for the game. And these are my druids from Circle Orboros for War Machine, and some of the other characters. In fact, I made a character up because we were thinking of alternating Games Masters every 4 weeks or so. So I made a druid, and I rolled terrible on one of my dice rolls. I only had a stat of 6, and I put it in charisma. So I'm a bit of a weird hermit of a druid that's very grotesque and smelly, and that's the character model I was using for it. So yeah, I mix and match. I think the characters are going to encounter some druids in this bog, so I'm going to use these ones when they come up to that phase of the game. And I used a whole mix of these during the session. It worked out quite well. Also handy carrying it around in a quick tray like that, because what I'll do is I'll go through my miniature collection and I'll just pick out a few models that I know I want, and then I'll drop them in that ready for the game on the night, so it's all in one place and easy to get hold of. Yeah, so it's great fun doing role playing. I'm one of those people that likes any kind of hobby, miniature, board game, role playing, and also the traditional wargaming, which I do as well. But I have a particular sort of fondness of this because I started the role playing before I did any of the other wargaming style of games, although I was very quick into the old Games Workshop Warhammer, probably within a year or so of doing some role playing, but at the same time I never really had the sort of long-term feel like I did for the Dungeons & Dragons style role-playing games, where we had great campaigns running. So well worth having a look at those. And just on the subject, actually, obviously when you're playing, dice are vital. Picked this one up when I was in, it's a dice roller, I picked it up in Copenhagen, I think it's called Pharaoh's Cigar. It's a great store actually. If you're ever in Copenhagen and you're travelling in Denmark, pop in to there. Do avoid going in any submarines, because I've had that tragic murder recently where that lady went in the submarine. Obviously I don't think it's been proven yet that the guy that hand built his own sub has murdered the lady, but it felt very much like Dexter. And the reason I want to show off these particular dice is because I bought them recently from DN Dice. So I think they're British, at least that was the website, who knows, it could have been European. But their dice packs come in these nice tins. You get a single set in each tin. I'm going to use the tin for other storage rather than the dice, but I went for these kind of not psychedelic, but I went for a set of dice that were in a nice range of colours. Just to sort of show you those in terms of their qualities. I think they're rather sharp, and I like that sort of variated style. Okay, yes, I went for a candy pink style colour, but I like it. And because now you're quite often rolling 2 dice at once when you're doing the advantage or disadvantage rolls, I've got 2 new dice. I mean, when you're starting again, why not get fresh dice? That's an interesting question for people, actually, because I suspect there's some people out there that say they've used the same D20 for 20 years or something, or longer. And obviously my problem is, like a magpie, I keep buying new. So I've gone and bought loads and loads of new dice just for this new game. But yeah, worth checking them out. DN Dice, they do a nice range. They're like the Chessex, but I think they're just slightly, there's a sort of a nice quality to them. I don't know if they're probably all made in the same factory, who knows, but I like the look at those. Well worth checking them out. Also got those nice rainbow style ones too, which look pretty nifty. So thanks very much for listening in again, and this has been a short video, very much just talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'll be interested to hear from other people, see if they still play it, what your views are on it, and whether you like the new 5th edition or not. Any views welcome in the comments below. Thank you. Goodbye.